Hi, Tay.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Of course, my phone wanted to cut up as soon as I decided to start. Girl, listen, first of all, Taylor, I've been at this Airbnb. So I had my first guest last night.
Uh-huh.
And my apartment smelled like straight smoke, weed. I found cigarettes inside of the restroom. I was just like, and I've already put on there, like, if you smoke in my shit, the fine is $300.
Yeah.
But I couldn't even do that because it's my first guest.
Oh.
So you need like 5-star reviews to be a super host. So it's like it's a double-edged sword. If I find them, they're gonna leave a bad review. And it's gonna be my
Yeah.
first review. So I was just like, oh well.
Oh, French, I'm sorry. Can you give me 2 minutes? My nephew's crying and Jasmine's down the street.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, French, I'm so sorry. I'm ready.
Rete. Okay, so welcome to I don't know if this is going to be a podcast yet. More, it's just a YouTube series for me now.
Okay.
So just conversations with friends. So I'm just going to kind of briefly just tell them about your background first before we go into conversation. So guys, this is Taylor Marie Roddie. And look, I'm putting out your whole government. So kind of like our previous guest, I have to go through my entire Tuskegee family. It's one of my best friends. She graduated with a Bachelor of Science from Tuskegee in psychology. Also graduated you had clinical psychology from Clemson, right?
Clinical mental health counseling is what it says.
Clinical mental health counseling, excuse me, from Clemson University Master. And I always have to throw this out. She's never made a B in her life. So let's give it up for the overachievers in the world. She's an overachiever. So this topic is conversations about mental health. So I just wanted to kind of throw her credentials out there to let you all know that we're not just kind of friends talking about, even though we are friends talking about mental health, she has a professional background, professional expertise in this. So we always have really good conversations behind the scenes on it. So I just really wanted to throw those big topics out there. Going to touch a little bit on the Black community and mental health and just mental health topics throughout this session. So for starters, can you explain to us, I know you just started that new position, but just explain to us like what kind of work that you do.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. But definitely I am currently a clinician for a program that was created to assist survivors of violent crimes. So those violent crimes include victims of gun violence, sexual assault, physical assault, domestic violence, amongst other categories. And so our program is really geared towards helping the survivors of these violent crimes, because of course, such a traumatic experience is going to bring about a lot of different difficulties related to mental health. So we strive really to help them get on a new pathway of healing.
So did you always want to do that? So when you got your degree in psychology, did you always want to go into counseling?
Funny story. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Me too. First of all, fun fact, I started off as a psychology major, which is how we met in college, because I wanted to be a lawyer and I decided I don't like to read and write enough for this, so I'm out.
Right.
But
so I really wanted to be a lawyer in high school. Now, when I got to Tuskegee, I kind of already had like the pathway of like, I wanted to help people in a different way. Mm-hmm. So I have a cousin who's literally 10 days older than me. And when we were both around 17, 18, I was in my senior year of high school, he was sentenced 25 years to life. Now, given the crime that happened, the sentence was justified. But there was a lot of things in his youth that he had to experience and go through alone.
Yeah.
And so I kind of sat back and looked at it. I was like, as a lawyer, as a prosecutor at that, because I wanted to be a prosecutor, it wouldn't be my job to go through the defendant's life story. Like, oh, were you cared for? What did you go through that led you to get to these decisions that you made today that has you in court facing 25 years to life? That wasn't going to be my job. And so I wanted to help in a different way. And because I knew some of the struggles that he endured, I decided to go into mental health.
Okay. So you go to school, you're thinking you want to be a lawyer. does that thought process take place while you're in school already? Or did you know graduating, like, I want to be on the counseling side of this?
So by the time I came to my senior year, I knew that I wanted to be a counselor. I had spoke with one of the guidance counselors there and just kind of talking to him about like, this, I didn't know what to do. And he was just like, the more that we talked, he was like, you need to be a counselor. Like, that's where your passion is. And that's what you need to go for. So by the time I made it to Tuskegee, I knew that I wanted to be a counselor.
Wow. So before we get into like the meat and potatoes of everything, I feel like that kind of work is heavy. Mm-hmm. And I care about those issues. Do you feel like you take work home with you? And if you don't, like, what is the line of you separating like these people's personal issues and then being able to go home and still feel light? Because that's heavy, dealing with someone who is mm-hmm. with traumatic experiences every day. Like so I guess my question really is just like, do you feel like you take it home all the time? And if you don't, like, how do you draw the line to say this is work and then here's how I'm going to enjoy my personal life?
Yeah, you definitely take it home with you, definitely, especially when I first started in the field. So I'm 3 years in now, actually being in the field, seeing my own clients, mm-hmm. coming up with treatment plans. So I've been doing it for 3 years now. So you definitely take the work home with you because it's like, how can you not? These people really come to you and tell you things that they've never shared with anyone, and find you to be a safe place. So it's kind of hard not to take that work home with you. But I had to just be able to draw boundaries of, I can help my clients to the best of my ability. And once I've done that, that has to be enough. It has to be, even though I may want to push further, even if I want to jump in and work harder, I have to know that every day when I in a session that I've done everything possible in my power to make sure that I'm assisting the people that I work with. And I also open it up to my clients to let me know, like, hey, give me some feedback about how this session went. Did you benefit from it? Did you feel like you got nothing out of it? And that helps me as a counselor. And it also helps me to leave it at work because now I know what I need to work on for the next session to be better. But definitely when I first started, I was definitely bringing work home with me, and it was very, very, very stressful. And as a therapist, like you said, you work with people every day. You can't be stressed out going into the session. It's like you're stressed out, the client is stressed out. Neither one of us are benefiting for anything. So I just had to draw boundaries and saying, like, when I know that I've done all that I can do to assist a client, that has to be enough. Even if it's not granting the outcome that I want, it has to be enough. And it is enough because I've done everything that I know to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I work through that.
That's tough because we talk about sometimes, or people in general talk about just laying those kind of things on your friends. Like, it's always good to get professional help. But when you just talked about that, drawing those lines, that's how people now, it's like this movement where therapists are saying, like, hey, your friends are not your therapists, because when you really love and care about someone, you carry those things too. And so I can only imagine, what it's like every day, but you're a professional. So like, even if you're carrying it, it can be heavy for someone else too. So I think kind of to your point, when you were just kind of talking about like, how could you not? I'm like, yeah, and especially if you really love someone, that part gets really, really hard too. So do you deal with children now, or do you deal with adults?
No, strictly adults, 18 and older, but I have experience as a school-based therapist where I was working with middle schoolers and high schoolers. And then I did a little bit of work in private practice where I had maybe 2 or 3 clients who were like between 12 and 15.
Do you prefer one over the other?
I don't necessarily prefer one over the other. I think they both bring me a learning experience. I think like from the kids, when I was working with kids, I learned a lot about resilience because some of the things that they've been through, I couldn't imagine have gone through as a teenager. And it was important for me to let them understand that although you have experienced a lot as a child, it has not broken you. And I know that it's still difficult but it hasn't broken you. So I enjoyed like empowering them, because so many of them felt like they were losing their minds because like I've experienced all these things and what am I supposed to do with it?
Yes.
So I really enjoyed empowering the youth. With adults, I like encouraging them that it's never too late to change. It's never too late to want to be a better version of yourself, because as an adult, we feel like, oh, I'm too stuck in my ways. Mm-hmm. It's too late for me. Mm-hmm. But I get a lot of enjoyment in empowering them and saying it's never too late to change. Like, we are ever changing every day. I'm not the same person I was when I was attending Tuskegee. I'm a different person. I have different views. I handle things differently than I did when I was in college. So it's benefits of both.
Do you find that adults, I'm not going to say harder to work with, but are children more open? Like, is there a difference in adults? Because in my mind, I would think that adult that would have a lot of trauma because they carried it longer, harder for them to speak about and work through. In your professional experience, do you think that adults have a harder time opening than children?
I think the adults having a little hard time doesn't necessarily have to do with them being adults. It has to do with I don't want to say a power struggle, but some of the clients that I work with now are older than me. So a lot of their apprehensions are, oh, you're a baby, you're a child. How can you possibly understand what I've gone through? How can you help me? When I was working with kids, it's like they saw me as an authority.
They thought you were the adult.
So they were like, they were more open to like that I can help them. Whereas with adults, it's kind of like, I have more experience than you. Can you really help me? Yeah. So I won't say that one is more open than the other. I think, that dynamic of me being younger plays a role. So I just have to let them open up to the fact, like, yes, I am younger than you. I'm very upfront in my sessions, like very open. If you have a problem, let's talk about it. Let's put it all on the table. And so when my age has came up, even when I was working with kids, like coming up with their parents, like, yes, I am younger. No, I have children. I don't have children of my own, but I have went through extensive training. Yes. That can help you and your child. And so that's kind of have to bring it to the table though, but it's not something that I ignore. It has came up like, oh, how old are you? And once we get through it and they see that I'm like genuine and I welcome feedback, like I said, every client that I work with, I let them know, like, you're the expert on your life. I'm not the expert here. I'm just here to kind of give you some tools and strategies to navigate through your life, but you're the expert of your life. So I think once I kind of level the playing field, it makes it easier for people to open up.
So I like that you said that, because a lot of times I think that people think going to therapy, you're going to give them advice and tell them exactly what to do. So, because I've come to you in that way, and you're like, I can give you advice as a friend, but as a professional, I can only give you the tools. It's not me to sit here and say, okay, you should do X, Y, and Z. So for someone who may be interested in therapy or counseling, can you just give us a definition of just like, when I come, what am I coming for? Like, what is it your job to do for me if I decide to come?
Absolutely. So typically when you go to a first session with a therapist or counselor, whichever term you like to use, there's an assessment where we're asking an array of questions just to get a better understanding of who you are and what are some of the difficulties that you're currently experiencing. And then like the next session, we set out goals. So what do you want to improve in? Do I want to feel less anxious when I have to do public speaking because I'm in a job where I have to present every month, but every time it's time for me to present, I'm freaking out? What are your goals? So you give us your goals and we kind of talk through what the difficulties are. And then we come up with a treatment plan that is developed with evidence-based strategies and theories to help you navigate through that. So it's not me telling you what you need to do. It's not me telling you to stop being nervous, drink 3 cups of water. Like, it's not something that would help me, right? Or that I think helps me when I'm nervous. Based on the information that you provide for me and based on the evidence-based theories and interventions that I've learned, we come up with a treatment plan together. So it's not just off the strength of what I think. This is actually supported by facts and evidence that has been tested and proven to be successful in other populations. So that's kind of how it works out. It's not just you come to me and I just give you my opinion of what would be
Here,
best for
take
you.
this.
Right?
It's going to improve your life. Thank you.
It has to be, it's rooted in evidence-based strategies and theories and interventions. So
okay. How soon should someone start therapy? Like, if let's say I was just interested in it, or let's say I was a parent. Like, is there an age that you think? And let's go from two different angles. Let's say someone has been through something traumatic, because I think obviously if someone goes through the traumatic, they probably need it immediately after that event. But just, is there a time, or do you feel that everyone needs therapy? And if so, like, what's a good age for someone to start?
So I don't necessarily have a good age, but what I will say is you need to start therapy once you realize that the difficulties or the obstacles that you are facing related to your mental health is having a severe impact on your daily functioning. So whether that is age 5 or age 55, once you notice that whatever that is going on is impacting your daily functioning, you need to seek therapy. Just from like personal experience, my therapy journey didn't start until I was 25. Went through a traumatic life-shifting event. And I thought, I'm okay. I'm a therapist. I can do therapy on myself. I can do these strategies that I've taught my clients. I've also learned from other coworkers. But it got to a point where like it was impacting my daily function. Like I was driving in my car on the way to work crying. I would like get into sessions, and I never cried in my sessions. It never really interfered with my work when I was in the presence of a client. But like in between clients, I'm crying. On the drive home, I'm crying. I'm very irritable. I don't want to be bothered with anybody. And anybody who knows me knows that I love to be around my family, my friends, joke, laugh. That was not the case. So, and what really triggered it for me is my mom said to me, Taylor, I feel like I have to walk on eggshells because any little thing that I say to you, you explode, you blow up. And that hurt me. So I was like, you need to do something about this, because this is not the person that you are. This is not the person that you want to be. And it is impacting your daily functioning. So that's why I said it's not like, oh, put your child into therapy when they're 3 or go to therapy when you're 21. It's like whenever you notice that whatever you're experiencing is impacting your daily functioning, you need to seek help.
Okay, I like that. So do you think something has to be wrong for someone to want to go to therapy?
Define what you mean by wrong.
So like, what if I just said, it's not altering my day to day. I may have some issues. Everyone has problems, but I just say, hey, for some reason, I want to take a stab at therapy. Is it good for me? Like,
absolutely, because therapy is really about self-discovery. And I think
I love that.
I think so oftentimes it's rooted in like, I'm crazy, or if I've never been through anything, how could I feel this way? Like there's people who has been through traumatic experience and I've had a good life. So how could I possibly feel what I'm feeling? Therapy is about self-discovery, whether something traumatic has happened to you or not. And I think we have to be very careful of even the word traumatic, because something as small as my dog dying when I was 5 years old and I'm 30, like why should that still bother me? You don't know what kind of companionship that dog was to me. So we have to be very careful about how we define what tragedy is and what trauma is, because some people feel like if it's not, like we like to call them big T's and little T's. People feel like if it's not a big trauma, then I shouldn't be impacted by the little traumas that happen. So big traumas would be like grief, loss, house fire, gun violence. Little traumas would be like, breakups or a car accident, or I lost my job.
People look at you and say, get over it.
Right.
So life goes on. You lose. Your boyfriend's gonna cheat on you sometimes. Like you'll live.
Yeah, it's okay.
Your dog died when you were 5. Why are you still upset? And it's
absolutely. So we have to be careful how we define that.
I love that you said that. And I hate to bring us into it as in Black people, but I feel like we do that a lot in our community. Yeah. A lot of times we have a mentality of just get over it. It's life. And I think we've adapted to so much hardship and struggle that it's like an expectation for us to live a hard life. Yeah. And so when things like if my dog dying or if a breakup is impacting me longer than my mom or family thinks that it should, they're like, oh, this is not traumatic. And all the while, this relationship has caused communication issues and relationships moving forward. It's caused me to not want to love anymore. And so we're trying to define what is traumatic for other people. And I love that you said that, because I'm like, in my mind, I keep telling people, and even as of recently, I was like, I'm going to start therapy for certain reasons, not because I've experienced anything just so devastating, but it's something that I feel like I need. And it's some stuff that I want to walk through with a professional. And, I was talking to someone and I was like, but at the same time, I'm like, I've never really, and I feel blessed because of this. Like I was really saying, like, I've never experienced anything traumatic. But now that you said that, like things that you're talking about big T's and little T's, now it's causing me to just kind of, my wheels are turning in my mind, because I'm like, you know what? It's some things I feel like I've been through that seem small and that I call small, but they impact the way I act today.
Heavily, yes.
Literally, they impact the way I act, whether it be breakup, friendship losses, just conversations, things have happened that I just thought, this was just that. It wasn't like, I was extremely hurt, this happened, but that has impacted me. And so I'm like, that's helpful. I love that you said that. So touching on I touched on it a little bit, just like mental health in the Black community. Why do you think, I think that we're developing now. I think we're living in a time we have people like Charlamagne that are really advocates for mental health, and he speaks about his anxiety all the time. Taraji P. Henson is, doing everything with counseling. So I love that there's a big push, but what I have found is the people who listen to them often have an interest in it. So I think it helps because it reaches them, because Charlamagne's on the radio, Taraji's like this huge actress. But I work at a lounge on the weekends, and I talk to these, these kids, they're like 19, 20, these kids aren't listening to Taraji. These kids don't listen to Charlamagne. And so what I found is that in the bare bones of our community, we still think about therapy as these kids. If I said something to them, I was like, oh, you should go to therapy. And I was talking to 5 Black guys. They range from about the age 19 to about 34. So about 18, early 30s. And they were like, my kid is not going to see a shrink. They're not sitting on the couch. And I was like, oh, because in my mind, because of the people that I listen to, because of my friend circle, I thought we had moved past that. I was like, oh, people don't really think like that anymore. But you get into your community and you find that, no, we still look at that like, oh, I'm laying on somebody's couch, telling my business, it's a shrink.
You're crazy.
You're crazy. Like, why would I go there? I'm not crazy. So as a professional, like, just in your opinion, I guess, not even from a professional standpoint, just why do you think that we have that view of, because I have an opinion that I'm going to share that I know you can speak to, but I want you to go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of you touched on it, like we have adapted that we're going to live a hard life, that we're going to have struggle just off the history of America, right? And I don't want to go fully into like a race situation, but it is kind of set up where we have to deal with things, and there's not a lot of people who are on our sides to help us get through the things that we have been faced with, right? So it's like, if this is going to be my life, what is the point of going to talk to somebody about problems that are not going to change? They're not going to change, right? And so it's like, why would I go? My child will be okay because I've been through it. They'll be fine. Like, they may cry or whatever, but they'll be okay. And I may cry, I may feel angry, but I'm gonna be okay. Why would I go and talk to somebody that I don't know, tell them my business? You touched on it before. Oh, well, I can just talk to my friends. I can talk to my mama, I'm gonna pray about it. And all of those things are great. Like, I don't think one has to be better than the other, but there has to be a balance, because at some point the things that we carry are too heavy for us alone.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how strong you are. The things that you carry are too heavy for you to carry alone. And there is such a vulnerability in beauty and being weak. And I know that sounds crazy. Like, I'm a single mom, you know, I'm raising my kids, I'm working 2 jobs, I'm trying to go to school. I don't have time to be weak. Or I'm a Black father, you know, working 12 to 15 hours a day. I got to put food on the table. I don't have time to be weak. But there's such a vulnerability and beauty in it. And so you ask, like, why do we still have that mentality? I think that's it. We feel like, what is the point if nothing's going to change? Mm-hmm. And so something that's big for me is that your situation may not change. Your circumstances may not change. So that means you have to change. You have to change because the things around you are not. But so that you don't crumble and break and bend and shatter and everything else, you have to change. And so that's what needs to be emphasized. Yes, some of the things that you're going through, you may feel like will never change, but you can change.
Yeah.
You can change, and your perspective and your outlook of it can change. That can relieve some of that stress. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to feel anxious or sad or angry about anything. It just means I know how to manage it better. So my situation isn't managing me, I'm managing it. Mm-hmm. So I think we just have to continue to have these conversations, like, you know, people who have your platforms, inviting people to speak about mental health. I hosted a mental health series at my church, I think about 2 years ago, right before the pandemic hit. I speak about mental health with my friends, my family, coworkers. Like, we have to continue facilitating this conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to take. And I know it's a taboo thing. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Another reason that I think, and you can tell me, because I'll cut this part out if I can't talk about it, but I'm going to be transparent and telling you that I tell people about it all the time. Of course, I don't name the company or anything. But another thing that I think Black people struggle with is like 2 things. I'm about to make points here. One, I will never forget you saying this. This had to be like your first year. You had to be like at Clemson at this time. And I just remember saying, if I go to therapy, or if somebody says something smart to you about, like, you know, like, how you gonna coach me? You know, you've never been through it. And you were like, as a counselor, if you expect me to have experienced everything that you've experienced to coach you and to teach you, you're probably not going to ever find the best therapist for you. So I think, one, we have a mindset of, I think you should experience what I experienced in order to teach me. That's the first thing that I learned from you about counseling and therapy, because I was like, if I want to go to a Black woman because she'll share my experiences, not realizing that we're not a monolith. Like, every Black woman doesn't have the same experience. We have some shared, but that doesn't mean that someone else, a white lady or a white man, may not be able to help me the same. So when you said that, I always thought, man, I was just really like, I really got to have a Black therapist, and it's a shortage of them. And so when you said, you know, you can't expect someone to experience everything that you have in order to teach you, I learned that. So I think that's one thing that people, because it's like, of course, it's a white dominated field. So I think that's one hesitation. Now, the reason I think that's important is because you had a situation, and again, I'll take this out if I need to, but I will never forget when you told me the Black girl was in her session or something like that. And she was, you know, she was talking, but she was doing like this in her session, like, you know, and, you know, one of the counselors documented that she was exhibiting self-harm. And so you saw that and you were upset and you had to say something, and it ended up being kind of this deal. And it's like, as a Black person, we're just scratching our head. We're just scratching our head. But a white woman doesn't know that. She's thinking, oh, she's talking and she's doing this, so this is her self-harm. And so it's just like, for me, we had a 10-minute window. So for me, I was just like, well, no, this is why we need more Black professionals. Like, that part of it sucks, because it feels like you don't understand. You're writing stuff down that could impact me, not even knowing that this is just something that Black people can relate to.
Right. No, it's fine. You could definitely keep it in. There was no identifying information given, so you can definitely keep it in.
Trying to be careful.
But no, it is important. And not to say you have to be comfortable in therapy. So it's like, if you want a Black therapist, I shoot for it. I will never say, don't limit yourself to a Black therapist. It is few, but there are us in the field. I'm a Black therapist, so I am representation that there are Black therapists in this field. It just may take a little more work to find this, but if you want it, you put in the work, right? So yeah, definitely, there are reasons why I can definitely agree to why Black people may not go into therapy. But again, we have to choose ourselves and not allow circumstances that we cannot control to get in the way of us taking care of ourselves. And that's oftentimes what we do. So if you want that Black therapist, right? Because there's some Black therapists that are not going to experience your experiences, like you touched on. Like, I had a kid tell me, literally, this is when I was a school-based therapist, Miss Taylor, you don't know what a life is in the streets because you wouldn't even have to think about a life in the streets. And when he said that to me, I was like, who is the therapist here, me or you? I came from a 2-parent household. When I went to school, I always had what I needed. If I didn't have something, my parents made it happen. I never had a desire to join a gang. I never felt like I needed to be in a gang for protection or to find a family. I never needed that. So when he said that to me, it's like, that makes sense, right? It makes sense. So a good therapist is going to take that, accept that, and then be willing to listen.
Yeah.
Right. So you have so much control in therapy. And I think some people don't realize that. Just take your control back. If you feel like somebody is saying something, whether it be your therapist or whomever, correct them, and as therapists, it's our job to ask questions when we don't understand. So in that situation that you were commenting on earlier, I just would have preferred the therapist that was showing the video to say, hey, I see you're doing this. Is everything okay? Because I'm sure the client would have literally said, oh, my head itch, I'm good. And we could have moved on, right? So we just have to not be discouraged by the obstacles that we can't control. But like I said, a lot of people don't know about EAPs, Employee Assistance Program, where they will pay for 3 sessions. They'll list up the therapists who are listed in their network with their insurance, and they will pay for 3 free sessions for you to just go and explore what therapy looks like or what kind of therapy.
And it's called an EAP. And is it nationwide?
So it just depends on the company that you work for. You would just have to talk with your employers to see if it's something that they have available, but most companies do. And so again, people don't know about that, right? So you can explore therapists. It's not like one and done. And I understand that therapy does cost money. I do understand that. But that's why it's a good place to start with looking with who is covered in your insurance network, which your job can help you with.
Also, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to put the link here, but if not, I will put it in the YouTube link in the video. But because you said that, there are other programs that offer certain assistance. So I saw this thread on Twitter, and it was like, Black girls who need therapy, here are a list of resources to offer that. So I just took a nudge. My cousin, she's experienced a death of her sister, and she takes it, like she just has moments like throughout the year, like once or twice a year, but she just really takes it rough. And I feel like therapy would be helpful for her. And it's something she's never explored. We didn't know how to get started. She doesn't really have insurance. So I applied for her for this thing called the Loveland Foundation, and they pay up to so they pay up to like, I think the first 3 therapy sessions. So I just applied for the voucher, and they said it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for you to hear back. And we just found out last week that she got the vouchers, and it's like $120 per session. And they give you a link. Once you get the vouchers, they give you a link. You can look up the therapist yourself. Like, they give you the links to the different programs that they offer it to. You can look up the therapist yourself and book your sessions up to $120. So now that you say that, I'm like, that might be an EAP. I just didn't know the name for it, but I saw it on Twitter. And so that's really helpful. So anybody who's interested in that, EAPs, like Taylor said, and I'll just put that link for the Loveland Foundation. I think that's what it's called, like Loveland or something like that. But she was able to get those sessions. So
that's great. And then even if you don't have insurance, there are a lot of nonprofit organizations who can kind of help reinstate your insurance or help you get insurance. I know when I was a school-based therapist, that company had an insurance advocate who helped reinstate insurance or help you get insurance. So look into nonprofit organizations. The program I particularly work for now, we don't even bill insurance, so you don't have to worry about having insurance. So it's just a matter of finding those resources and feeling like, I can ask these people these things. And like, I know everybody watching does not know me personally, but even if you want to drop my email address in the link or something, I completely don't mind, because it is something that I want us specifically to be more open to, because it's so beneficial. It really is. And I don't think we haven't
even been, and I know it is. I've seen it done for people. So hold on. Just like that, we back, baby.
Back and better.
They stopped the show. They want to stop the shine, honey. No. And I'm not paying that $150. I don't care. Dude. Okay, so, and we were on for a good start. So we talked about just pretty much how to actually get funding for counseling. So thank you for that. So before we wrap up with everything, I just wanted you to give us tips. I don't know why I'm a tip person. All of the sessions I've been doing, it's just been tips, like
absolutely,
people actually take something away from the conversation. So 3 tips. If you could just walk us through just things that'll help us, 3 things that you think are critical for the development of our mental health.
Yeah, there's so many. So I'm gonna do my best to put it into 3 that I feel are the most valuable.
Okay.
First one would definitely be attuned and listen to your body. And what I mean by that is know what your normal state is. So if you find yourself sleeping more than usual or sleeping less than usual, something's triggering your body. What is it? If you find yourself, you're overeating, you're undereating, you don't have an appetite at all, what is it? The things that you used to enjoy, you really don't want to do anymore. Just be attuned and listen to your body and respond to your body. So if your body tells you you need to lay down, lay down.
Yes.
Your body tells you you need to take a break, take a break. Take a break. So, and that's a big struggle for a lot of us, because we feel like, I can't take a break. I can't sleep. I have so much to do. But be attuned and listen to your body, because if you don't listen to your body will shut down for you. And when it shuts down by itself and not you doing it, you're not going to like the outcomes of what happened for your physical health or your mental health. So be attuned and listen to your body.
So sticking on that tip for a second, because I have this mantra, like when I'm working out, and it only applies when I'm working out. Any other time, I'm 100% in agreement with you. But like when I'm working out, I have this mantra, like I tell my body what to do. My body doesn't tell me what to do. Like, that's literally how I push myself through my workouts, because a lot of times I feel like we use it as an excuse to not push ourselves. Like, working out, we get tired and we're like, I won't work out, I'm tired. So I always go, like, that's one of my mantras. Like, I tell my body what to do. My body doesn't tell me what to do. That does not apply to rest and anything in a mental capacity, though, because sometimes if I am mentally overwhelmed, sometimes you can't move. Like, I'm just like, I sit with this. So I think that it is important that you said, I love that you said, know what your body's natural state is. Because some people don't even know that. Some people are not in tune with their natural body. Like, am I sleeping more or sleeping less? And some people almost think they enjoy it. Oh, I sleep all the time. It's probably not normal.
Yeah.
Don't even know it. Okay. I love that tip. So the first one was to be attuned and listen to your body. Okay. Yeah. What's tip number 2?
Number 2, which is gonna wow a lot of people. Set time in your schedule to do things that are fun, that you like to do, that make you happy. We want to release dopamine, endorphins, serotonin in our brain, because that makes us feel good. It's like we find time to do everything else. Like, we find time to go to work because we got to go to work, right? We find time in our schedule to pay our bills. We got to pay our bills. These are things that I have to do. Doing things that you love, that make you happy, it's not a want, it is a need. And I think we find that if we're not doing something, then we can't do the things that are fun. But it's definitely a necessity. So set time in your schedule. It doesn't have to be rigid. It doesn't have to be like every Monday at 2:45 p.m. I'm gonna go for a walk. But if you enjoy genuinely going on walks, take walks, at least 2 to 3 a week. Or if you enjoy skating, go skating. Like on a day where it's like not a lot of kids there, like during the week when a lot of kids are in school, parents aren't really getting them out. Find time and set the time to do the things that you enjoy. Definitely, because we often spend too much time in the things that we feel like that we must do. And we lose sight of happiness.
I was just going to say that. I feel like a lot of us feel like having fun is a luxury.
It is.
And to hear you as a therapist say like, yeah, it's a necessity too. Like you need it.
It is necessity. Now, don't get me wrong. In no way am I saying, walk up out of your job and like, no, like don't take
a vacation that you can't afford.
Because, doing the things that you want to do is also a luxury, but it's not just a luxury, it's a necessity. Like take time off of work. If you have PTO, I don't know why we feel like we can't take PTO, take it.
Yeah.
If you have it, take the time off.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do that brings you joy. If it's as simple as sitting at home watching Netflix, do that. So I think we have to take it in moderation, but not thinking like, oh, I can only do something fun once I've accomplished something. No, make time in your schedule to do the things that you love, that bring you peace and happiness, because happiness is such a virtue and we lose sight of it. So make time to do things that you enjoy.
I love that. Okay. And then the last one, like what's our final tip?
One, identify your support network. I know we've talked a lot about the fine line between friend and therapist, but identify your support network. And my support network is huge. I often get teased a lot. Taylor, you have so many friends. How is it possible? Because all of my friends don't serve the same purpose in my life. There's friends that I go to about this topic that I absolutely would not go to another friend about. Doesn't mean that I like one friend better than the other. It just means that they serve different roles and purposes in my life. So identify your support network, whether that's 2, whether it's 200, identify what that support network looks for you so that in times of discomfort, you at least know you have somebody or a group of people that you can confide in.
Okay. So those are our top 3 tips.
Top 3.
I love that. So in order for us to really make sure we're taking care of our mental health, we are staying attuned and listening to our bodies.
Yes.
We're setting time in our schedule to do things that we enjoy because it's not just a luxury, it's a necessity. And we are identifying our support network. So let me ask you this. What would you say to someone who feels like maybe they don't have anyone?
That comes up a lot more than I usually expected. Because like I said, I have a lot of friends, a huge support network. So I don't really understand the concept of I have absolutely no one. So what I would say is you create that network. I think we're in the age where there's so many, and I know a lot of people may not be social media groups, but let's say you enjoy reading. Libraries are still open and operating. Go to the library. And even though it's a place where it's supposed to be quiet, if you see a book that somebody's reading, what book are you reading? That simple conversation can spark and ignite a relationship, a friendship. So if you feel like you have no one, go to the places that you enjoy to seek out people who share those same interests and hobbies with you. That's the easiest way to form a relationship, right? We share a common hobby. We share something in common. Let's talk about it. So if it's simple, like I enjoy watching movies, go to the movie theater. It's not, a lot of people aren't really prone to go to the movie by themselves, but go. There's bound to be somebody else who's there alone. How did you like the movie? And sometimes it takes coming out of our, comfort zone, but I would say create your network because there is
that. And
a network for you.
You know what else I was thinking too? I would say too, that you probably have a network of people that you're not even thinking about.
Right.
Oh, it's probably like this coworker that you're just talking to, that you're released to all the time, that you're not even thinking like, oh, this is my friend, this is my family. But this is someone, everybody has like that one coworker that they actually
Right,
love
that you connect to.
You're like, this person makes me feel good. Like
Right.
that's a part of your network. And so I think just the simple things are looking around you. Like, what do you enjoy on a day-to-day? Like, who makes you feel good? Where are the people in your life, like whether you're going to work, whether you work out, is this somebody
Right.
like that? A lot of times I don't even think we kind of simply look at just those people in our network.
Or
So
we confine ourselves, we limit ourselves because like we were talking about earlier, oh, they don't know what I've been through. They can't possibly understand me. And sometimes your support network is not necessarily them understanding you, but them just allowing you to be who you are. And that's a beauty within itself, a group of people where just accept you for who you are. Maybe you don't understand me, maybe you can't understand what I've been through, but you accept who I am, and that's greatly needed by everyone. So don't limit yourself by saying like, oh, I don't have a support network because none of the people that I know have been through what I've been through. That's okay. That's okay. It is okay, but just accept that they're going to accept you for who you are. So don't limit your network by, nobody understands me. That can be a very lonely place to be in when you feel like nobody understands you, but open up your mind to, they don't necessarily have to understand you to accept you. They don't have to understand your struggles to say, I still think you're a beautiful person. They don't have to understand those struggles to accept you. So be open to networks that you may not have thought about, because it's like, oh, there's no way they can understand. They don't have to understand. But if they're willing to accept you, jump into that opportunity.
You said something that I actually really love, and it's just finding people that love you for you. I think that's an underrated love sometimes too, because a lot of people love with strict conditions. Like, I've been fortunate enough to find people who love me as I am. And sometimes you don't even know that until you go through some things and you go, you really love me. Like, but I will say, you get what you give too. You try to love people unconditionally, love people the way that you want to be loved, because I feel like until I realized I was getting that kind of love, I didn't know that I had the capacity to love harder, if that makes sense. Like, I always felt, I've never been a user, but I've always felt like, I don't know, I've always loved people just off of, I guess, what my view of like love was. It wasn't until I've seen people outside of my family, because I'm talking about like friendship love right now, instead of like family love, because I think sometimes in family it's easy to love those people unconditionally because you're related to them, you're stuck with them. But it wasn't until you start going through stuff like dark times, or you say things that you don't mean, or you're angry, or you say hurtful things and they forgive you and they love you anyways. And I've gone, wow, like if this person can love me like that, I can love this way too. And so I just love that you said that, like somebody that's just bare bones, who are you? I accept you and I love you anyways. I'm not going to uphold you when you're wrong, but I love you for you. Right. I think that is just an underrated like love that I just now in my latter 20 years have grown to really understand how that kind of love outside of your family pulls you up when you need it. And so I love that you said that too. Okay, so before we wrap up, I always want to end with what we call an end tip. And an end tip can be just a piece of advice, either pertaining to the topic we talked about or not, or just a quote or a mantra that you live by. So what do you feel like is your end tip of life?
I have to say this. It's simple, but it's powerful to me. Good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best.
You have said something there, honey. You took me back. I have not heard that. It's like something you learn in like high school, but it's so true. It's like, okay, I love that. Good, better, best.
And I think it's important, and it relates to what we talked about, because mental health is a ongoing journey. And I think we feel like there is like a cure. And it's really not, because therapy happens outside of our session. So not trying to get too deep, but especially in your journey in life, your mental health journey, your relationships, your family, like we're ever growing people. And so we're going to encounter obstacles and milestones and things that just stop us dead in our tracks.
Yeah.
But keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. So
never rest.
That'll be my intention.
You're better as your best.
Yes.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for joining me in our conversations about mental health. I hope to have you on again. I hope people give us good feedback about this, because I think it's just a topic that's needed. Like, and so I love that I have a friend that's actually in that industry too, because it helps me a lot. So thank you so much. I appreciate you and I love you.
Thank you for having me. Love you too. Bye.
How do I? Here we go.